Guys, welcome to Focus Performance Training. Today I want to talk about using the weightlifting variations, that being the two power variants, being the power clean and the power snatch, and how we can use that to really emphasize or develop our athletic performance. So the power clean is where the bar comes from the ground and lands on our shoulder, and the power snatch is simply from the ground, finishing up with arms overhead, right? So why do we use them and what are they good for? So obviously you can probably use common sense to realize that, well, the power snatch, we can move a little bit less load than we would be able to move the power clean. The power clean only goes to our shoulder and we're catching in a much more stable position versus the power snatch. But some of us might not have the ability to be able to receive a power clean in that nice front rack position. So it might actually be easier to receive a power snatch overhead in a nice strong position. So this gives us variation and choice straight away, depending on what our athletic goal is and what our capability is. So if we've got someone who really doesn't like getting to that front rack position, then we can immediately sub out the power clean and use a power snatch instead. The good thing is with the power snatch is the bar's going to go a lot further, which means we're going to do more work, and more work is one of the derivatives or one of the factors that equates to power. Okay, so the bar is going to move from the ground all the way overhead, and we're going to move that as fast as possible. Okay, so that's going to dictate the velocity of the bar, and then the mass is what's going to dictate how heavy it is or how much weight's in the bar, and that's going to be dictated by how far we have to move it. So with the power clean, we can generally move it a little bit with heavier loads with the power clean, just because A, our hands are close from the bar, and B, it's not traveling as far. So this gives us some trade-off in that force velocity curve where we can move a little bit heavier loads or lighter loads a little bit quicker. Now, which is best? Well, it all depends on what phase of training you're in, what your goal is, and where we're going with that block of training. Generally, they're both very good variants, and you might want to use a power snatch on a day where you don't want to train a little bit lighter and you want to move very, very snappy and quick. Whereas a power clean might be more suited to a little bit more heavier days, max effort days, where there isn't as much focus on technique. The reason being is that with cleans, we can sometimes get away with a little bit less technique or a little bit less proficiency in the technique versus in the snatch variant, because the bar is going to move a whole lot further and there's more room for error in a snatch, especially in a power snatch. Okay, so way I'd use a power clean is that if someone doesn't have the ability to go overhead effectively. So if someone really struggles to reach up overhead without arching to the lower back, or they can't even hold a barbell overhead without being really uncomfortable, then that's going to be a massive red light for me to use a power snatch. I can probably go to a power clean. All right. That's where I use them, and we can use them prior to squatting. So if you're going to do any strength working or training and you're looking at incorporating some weightlifting variants into your training, please do your weightlifting variants prior to your strength stuff. Unless you're a weightlifter who needs to learn to move under fatigue and needs to really bump up their strength, we want to use the weightlifting variants to increase power and to be fresh because they're a new skill. So that's really important to remember and to focus on when we are incorporating these. The sort of reps and sets we'll be looking at, anywhere from 3 sets to 6 sets, anywhere from reps of 1 to 3. I don't really see much point in going above 3 reps, just because the skill decay becomes more and more within that set and the reps aren't as good. That being, they're not moving as quickly, they're not as technically proficient, and the lifter will start to sort of move a little bit slower at the end of that set. Feel free to use cluster sets, which would be 1 rep, take a step back, rest, go again for after 10 seconds. Something along those lines can be really good for repeated power in something like the clean pull. And it's going to maintain technical proficiency throughout the whole lift.